Hey, Kaden, we're going to go live any second now. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
I want to give a shout out to my mom because I know she's watching. Mwah!
Awesome, Mom. Here we go. Guys, I'm so excited. Again, we are back with another awesome guest. This is Kaedyn Nedopak. He's an award-winning transgender writer, producer, and psychic witch who uses his creative work to inspire others and activate change in the world. And his credits include the first ever live award show for geeks. We're going to talk a lot about that. That's the Geekie Awards, which featured Stan Lee. And his work also includes a viral series for the Skyrim Parodies and Late to the Game. Currently, he's working on a fantasy book series called Gaia's Song. Welcome to the show, Kaedyn. How are you?
Hello, I am good today. Thank you so much. And I just want to clarify for everybody, I am transgender male. I'm at the very early stages, so I think a lot of people look and they're like, the
Wait,
long
what did you say?
hair, I'm thrown off. And this is a big topic of conversation for me, so we'll talk about that too.
We will totally talk about that, dude. And we're just going forward with it all today. So
Yes,
I'm not even sure where to start with you because you've got so many amazing things that you have done and are doing. And
thank
for
you.
people that don't know, Kaden is the new producer also for our show right here, and that's why we
Yes,
have all the amazing guests coming up. Yes,
thank you. So if you want to be on our show, call me.
yes. Call me. So hey, let's start with Gaia's song, and let's go from there. Talk about
Okay.
what is it and why did you write it? What's it about? All those sorts of
Oh,
cool things.
yeah. So this is my baby. I have been a producer and a writer, copywriter mostly for branding and marketing for a very long time in both the entertainment industries and the technology industries. And so somewhere around 2016, I went to Ireland and I really started diving into my family heritage. I have grandparents who mostly are Slavic, part Irish, Polish, Ukrainian. And during that time, I started exploring like what was the history of my family, going to these lands in Europe and seeing what it was really like. And as I was discovering the history, I realized that literally all of my family members, the cultures, had gone through massive famines, political unjust, oppression. And so I came back from that trip feeling like I need to tell this story about classism, this story about society, and all of the different areas where people were just oppressed by, essentially the colonizers. I mean, for the Irish, it was the British. For
Hmm.
Ukrainians and Polish, it was Russians. I mean, and everybody in between. And so this has been a project I've been working on for many years, but I've transformed it over time to begin to include things like the gender norms, misogyny, and essentially what life was like in the 1800s during the Victorian era in Western Europe and in America during this time for people who just didn't fit in. Basically, if you weren't white and cisgender and male, this is what your life was like. And so I created this book series. It is a fantasy and it is about a group of LGBTQ teens who go out and they heal their trauma and they rediscover their purpose and they find, other people. It's about found family and it's about the healing power of love, mostly self-love. And
Yes.
so I'm super excited about this and it's something that I am trying to finish hopefully this year, but it's definitely been a long journey and it definitely involves because as you said, I'm a witch and we're going to be talking about spirituality. It definitely involves a level of magic and how to use the magic of the earth to help heal your wounds. And so yeah, that's all I'll give away for now
Okay.
unless you have questions, but I'm really excited about it.
I
Thank you.
do have questions about the book, and also, does it have witches in it?
It does have witches. Now, the way that I'm writing this story is that it is a made up island, kind of like what Disney does when they say, you're in New York City, but we're going to go to this place over here where there's a castle that
Right.
doesn't exist. So I didn't want to insult any specific culture or really rely on the history of a specific country. So I've created my own little country. It's called Doria. And so in this, there are several different cultures and they've got the classism, the system and everything, but it's very inspired by Western Europe and it's very inspired by America, because I am American. So, you know, we have to talk about all of the things that are going on in this country. And I put it somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean in between. And so when I say that there's witches, witch is a very Western European term. And so
Yes.
though I do use that term because it's relatable to my American book audience, it might be a little different type of witch than people are used to. People think witch and they think Celtic witch. Well, there's witches all over the world. We just use different terms. So even if I use that terminology, I'm pulling from all of my ancestral lines, including Eastern Europe, including Western Europe, and everywhere in between.
Let's talk about gender norms, because when I
Yes.
introduced you just a second ago, I threw in the term, I said, and he's a witch. And
Hmm.
people were going like, what witches? I thought witches were just like
Yeah.
female. And
Yeah.
a long time ago, you and I were talking, and I had the question because I was asking, is there warlocks, witches? What's up with that gender term? So explain that to us.
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to know where the term witch came from. You know, that term was associated more with women, and there was like another variation of it that was, you know, how words are like feminized or masculinized depending on the sex. And, you know, Ukrainian cultures and Slavic cultures do that all the time with the last names. They add the A at the end if it's female, and not for male. So the term witch did come from somebody who practiced sorcery, and it was a very derogatory term at the time because they thought these people were dark and they were creating curses and spells. So it was not a happy term, but it is a term that modern day spiritualists and pagans have reclaimed. Now, it is very gendered in the sense that I think there are a lot of people in this world that believe that only witches are women. And I personally believe that is because they don't understand history. There were a lot of healers that were men. There were so many people that were sorcerers that were also men. But during these eras when witch was demonized as a term, women were also demonized, right? Women were the
Right.
ones who were blamed. And so the term witch automatically got tacked onto female. But what people don't know is there are many cultures, especially in the Slavic countries, where the male witches were actually more demonized than the women, if you can believe it.
That
So, again, this is a case of like hearing British history in America, because that's what we're influenced by, hearing the term, and the gender norms and the gender associations were passed down through history for us to believe that witch meant woman, when in reality, anyone can practice magic and anyone can be a witch. And I believe the term warlock to me just sounds like I'm a D&D character, so I
right.
just don't use it. I'm like, you know what? I do play D&D and I am a sorcerer elf, but that's another story.
You also watch sci-fi too, which is cool because
Oh
you
my
are a
gosh,
geek
I
and you did
love
the Geekie
sci-fi
Awards.
fantasy. I love it all. Give it
Yeah,
to me.
you're I asked you the other day if you were a Star Wars or a Star Trek, and you are.
Oh, Star Wars. Look, I love Star Trek. My mother is obsessed with Star Trek, but when I grew up with Star Trek, I felt more like a soap opera to me. I was like, but these are humans wearing costumes. Star Wars, there were droids, there were other planets. I mean, to me, Star Wars is my childhood, and so yeah, I love Star Trek, but I
Uh-huh.
am a Star Wars fan, 100%.
I'm gonna get you into Discovery and Strange New World soon, so we'll
Oh
we'll,
no, I
we'll
started
talk about
watching
that.
Discovery and then they put it on Paramount Plus and I just don't have that. But I love Michael. Oh my gosh, I love the new Discovery.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Discovery's good for the first two seasons, and then somehow jumped off a cliff in season three. But
Oh
we'll talk about
no. Okay, well I
that.
watched the first two seasons, so there.
Yeah, first two seasons were awesome. Lorca might have been my favorite cool like reveal, just like when the Luke
Oh,
Hand thing happened. I'm your father,
so
no. So
so good. No, such a huge, and The Expanse, don't get me started. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi.
The Expanse is
Yeah.
amazing.
We had a
We're
whole
just
show
like
about The
going
Expanse.
divergent. We could like,
It's okay. This is all in the realm of, but you know what's really cool about sci-fi is, you know, we see so much television and so much media out there that is so gendered. And what I love about the new sci-fi shows is that they definitely try, you know, to go out of the box. So like, look, we're in space, we're in the future, like F these gender norms. And so I think sci-fi is really making where they used to be a little bit sexist,
hmm
a lot
not
of bit
just like a
sexist.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of it sexist. I feel like they're really coming into their own and creating different types of characters, especially if you have aliens. It's like, we don't really need this to be a gender at all. And so I'd like to see that across more television.
I think Star Trek is actually doing a good job with that, and especially in their
Yes.
newer series. They tried to do it in their then TOS, the original series, but
Hmm.
it definitely in Strange New Worlds, uh, they are, and in Discovery, the gender norms are like completely like ambiguous and blurred. Everyone's like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
this and he and she, and that we just go with it.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. And we need more of that. And we need more trans characters. We're definitely finally getting gay characters and queer characters. And now I think we need more trans characters, especially in sci-fi fantasy, which is why I love my book series, because when it does get made, it is literally about the main character is transgender male, and we get to see him go through that process in the 1800s without testosterone, without gender affirming surgeries. Like, what was life like? So I
I,
think we need more of that.
I can't wait till that comes out. I want to read it. I want to be in it and see what's happening. So
Yes, you
we
should
will.
be. I might got a character for you. You
Okay.
might be a trans woman, but that's gonna be amazing.
We'll see. Like, how do I play this part now? You'll have
Yes,
to walk me through it,
exactly.
or I'll have to get some of my friends to walk me through. How do I play this character? That'd be cool.
Yes, yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the other cool things that you've done, and we're going to get back to your top surgery because that is amazing to me, and I think we need to get
Thank
people
you.
into doing that.
Yes.
You worked with one of the real life superheroes that was with Stan Lee when you did the Geekie
Yes.
Awards,
Oh
and
my
he's gone
gosh.
now. But what was it like working with Stan?
You know, it's funny that you asked that. I didn't know we were gonna have this conversation, but I actually woke up this morning and I thought to myself,
I didn't either, by the
what
way.
was the most what's up?
I didn't either. It's just like
Yeah,
it's like my
well,
mind was
that's
going.
how in tune we are. That's why we work together, y'all, because we're so in tune. No, I woke up this morning and I thought, what was the single most amazing point in my career, and what was the most single amazing point in my life? In my life, it was definitely coming out as transgender. I mean, I can go on and on about the euphoria and the happiness that I found, but then I was thinking about my career and I thought it was when I got Stan Lee to be on my show. Now, first of all, Stan is such an amazing human being. I mean, when you see him like energized, he's the man that walks into the room and everything lights up. He is so incredible, was unfortunately so incredible as a human being, and it's such a gift to have him on this earth during the time he was here. So meeting him, it was like you think you have amazing energy and then you meet someone who just blows you away. But the funny thing was, I had no idea until several days before the show whether or not he was going to be there. So we were going to give him the award. He was considering coming, but since it was my first show, he had no idea what to expect. And he told his team, like, I could be walking into a bar and this could be really weird, but he came. So I got a call like 3 days before from his guy, and he's like, Stan's coming. And I'm like, oh my God, like the show would not have been the same without Stan. We had Seth Green presenting. Who is he going to present to? But he came because of Seth. So thank you, Seth. And he showed up and he just walked out on stage and sang a song. And
Wait,
he's
he
so
actually sang a
incredible.
song at the
Oh,
Geekie Awards.
he did a poem to Yankee Doodle Dandy, and this is a video that you could go search on YouTube. I wish we had here, but he wrote a poem about being a geek to the tune of Yankee Doodle, and that was part of his speech. And then he left, and then the next day, his team called me, and they were like, "So Stan wants to get involved with your show because he thought it was amazing." And from that moment on, we called the award the Stanley Lifetime Achievement Award. And if we ever start the show again, that's what the Lifetime Achievement Award is called. And so it was such an epic moment to meet such a hero and to meet somebody who not only is your hero, but is such an amazing, inspiring human being and kind and energetic soul. He took all the time in the world. This dude was like 80, he took all the time in the world to speak to every single person and just shine that light on them. Oh, and it makes me tear even thinking about it. I'm getting
Well,
all sappy right now, you guys. And
you,
guys cry too.
I want you to know that you have been a hero and are being a hero to everyone because the way that you have come
Thank
out and you're
you.
talking about your top surgery.
Thank
I read the
you.
post on on Facebook, and people on our team that we're talking about have been, I think, inspired because of your journey.
I
So
love that.
tell me a little bit more. Tell the audience because I'm up kind of on it, but tell me more about your
Absolutely.
journey there.
Oh my gosh, well, there's so much. First of all, I have a TikTok, Trans Fairy Prince, Faerie. So I have this whole diary of a trans fairy prince, and I go through every single day. I upload a video. That's my cat meowing. Every single day, I upload a video to talk about my experience. So that definitely goes more in depth. But I essentially, I gotta kick my cat out.
Oh, you could bring your
By the
cat
way,
on with you.
her name is Gaia, so I named
Uh-huh.
her after the earth, not in my book's name. But anyway, I came out, well, essentially, a lot of my friends are like, You're coming out was so quick, but I moved from Los Angeles to Oregon, and lived by myself, with the exception of my mom being my neighbor, for 2 years in isolation during the pandemic. I was quarantined for 2 years. I didn't travel. I didn't want to get anything. So I stayed here, and I live in a pretty rural area. So I had a lot of time to myself. And it was a very dark and depressing 2 years of my life. And once the pandemic started clearing up, really at the end of 2021, I kind of realized, well, when Elliot Page came out, I'd just been struggling with like, not feeling right in my body and all this dysphoria. And I was coming to terms with this dysphoria that I've had my entire life that I didn't even realize I had. And I had gone through many, many years of healing my body,
Mhm.
healing like the sexualization of, female bodies, or assigned female at birth bodies. And then I got to the point where I was like, but I'm still depressed. Like, what is going on with me? And when Elliot Page came out, I was like, holy sh this
Yeah.
is me. This is me. And I slowly talked to my friends about it, because there's so much transphobia in this world. People don't understand. Cis people do not understand what it's like to feel like an alien in your body, literally. And I slowly talked to some of my friends, and one of my friends was like, I think you're transgender. And I was like, yeah, I think I am. And it took me a while. I started talking to people I trusted. And then finally, I'll tell you, I just kept getting hit on by guys. They were talking about my boobs, they were talking about sex, and I had it. And I was like, I'm coming out. And so January of this year, I came out public to everybody in a big bang. I mean, some people do it slowly, and I was like, let's rip the band-aid off. And everyone was so confused and super shocked. And there was like dead silence for like a good few months from a
Yeah.
lot of people. But as I posted, I'm a huge fan, or a huge proponent of like, share your story, be vulnerable, speak your truth, because people are going to relate to it. And so I definitely lost some friends. I definitely lost people a lot, definitely lost a lot of followers on my Instagram, my social media. But then I went over to TikTok, and I found like a new family, and a lot of the people that follow me now are transgender, and we can have these conversations with one another. For example, I just posted a video about, hey, if I start taking testosterone, how's my voice going to change? Because I'm known for my voice as an on-camera person, and a voice artist. And like, tons of people gave me tips and resources, and like showed me videos about their changes. And it's such a beautiful community. And so top surgery is what I'll make this quick, but
Yeah.
top
No, just
surgery
keep
is,
talking because I'm
yeah,
fascinated, and I think the
absolutely. Well,
audience is fascinated. By the way, will the
I
voice
think
change or
that,
not?
yes. Well, okay, so let's say this. People are confused because they think that all transgender folks need to go through medical surgeries, which technically the term is transsexual if you switch your sex hormones in your body to fit another gender. But, trans gender is just a social norm. So there are people that go through all of the things, and there are people that go through none of the things. And then we have our beautiful non binary crowd who's like, I'm just not talking about gender at all. I love you guys, by the way. For me, I definitely am going gendered and feeling like a male. But my process right now, because I will be honest, and everybody knows this, I'm a small person with very large breasts. There is no way for me to leave the house without people going female because of these things on my body. And I am looking into taking testosterone, but I have to weigh all of the pros and cons. You have to look at your age, you have to look at like all of the things that you're essentially tapping into the male genes on your mother's side of the family. So you have to think about these things. It's kind of Russian roulette what's going to happen to your body when you take it. And for a lot of people, it's glorious and euphoric. For me, I'm still looking into it, but I couldn't fathom, and I apologize if this insults anybody, I could not fathom getting a deeper voice and growing a beard and still having large boobs. So
Yeah.
top surgery was my main focus. I was like, I got to do this first because I can't do all these other things and still walk out of the house with, I mean, you can't hide them. You can't bind
Yeah.
these. I'm so jealous of people that are smaller that like can cover them up. I'm like, I have a video on my TikTok where I'm trying to tape them and I'm like,
Not working.
open at all. Like they're just you can't hide these things. So I am doing a GoFundMe for my top surgery, which
Did
you can
Elliot
find on online.
did Elliot
Elliot had top
do he did top surgery,
surgery. Yeah,
but
he did top surgery.
testosterone or no?
That is his own personal decision, and it's not for me to get into anybody else's medical history. Judging by his voice, I'm guessing not, but you never know.
Right.
He also has a career as an actor, so this is the thing that I want to also destigmatize that like not everyone's going to go that route. For some people, like surgery is enough, physical surgery, and for some people they just do testosterone and they don't do anything else. And so at this point I can't say because that's his personal
Right.
his personal life, and I try not to dive into other people's personal medical life. If I'm
Yes.
sharing a lot about myself today, I generally don't do that.
By the way, Umbrella Academy this last season, fabulous.
I mean, it was already amazing. And then to
Right.
see like a transgender male, because we have seen transgender people in media, but I will say, usually it's female. Usually it's like a glamorous, super
Right.
rock star model looking female, which is amazing because we definitely need trans women as well. But it's very rare to see a lead character as a transgender male. Usually they'll go with like the gay man, and like that's provocative, which still is, but it was so beautiful to see somebody actually transition on the show, not just be transgender, but
Correct.
actually transition on the show. And I think it was just groundbreaking
Yep.
for a lot of trans men to see and to see somebody as amazing as Elliot, because I'm such like I kind of have a crush. Kind of have a crush.
Yeah.
If Elliot, if you're single,
Uh,
call me.
Elliot was I'm trying to remember in the first two seasons, was Elliot the main character? Because in this season, when they do the credits,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay, I didn't remember.
Well, the Umbrella Academy, I think all of them are kind of main characters. It's an ensemble cast, but he was the main character because he was villainized as the one they locked him away, and he had all the power, and then would destroy things, and so he was a big part. I think Elliot and Five were kind of like
Five is my
also
favorite. I
love. Oh
love
my God,
Five.
Five is my favorite. He's such a snarky little bitch, and I love him. I want to hang out with that kid. He's probably like could be my child, but I still want to go.
You know what? Let's get them on the show. Let's get Elliot and let's get Five on the show.
Yeah, let's do it. It's gonna happen, man.
All right, I
I
believe
can't
that.
wait.
Oh my gosh. We could probably go on for another hour about this. People are eating lunch, people are
Yes.
watching it in short little blurbs. Let's end it here. I want people to be able to get in touch with you and know lots and
Well,
lots of stuff about you.
I think we could end it, but do you have like 5 more minutes? We have five
I've got all
minutes.
day. Let's just do
Okay,
this
let's
thing.
do 5 minutes because the topic of the show was spirituality and gender norms. And I know we talk about me, but I really want to just spend a few minutes because I have a message here. And it's not just spirituality, but something that I've discovered since coming out, and something I really honestly didn't realize presenting as a cis woman for most of my life, was how gendered society is in our
Yes.
verbiage, in the way that we expect people to look and expect people to dress, and the way we judge other people. I mean, I kind of got a little bit of that because I grew up in the 80s, and men were very judged for having long hair, for wearing makeup, which to me was amazing because those were my idols, which is why I'm like, I'm not cutting my hair because, hello, I grew up in the 80s. Like, that was a thing.
Uh-huh.
But I just feel that, being a witch, like we mentioned, being a spiritual person, not religious, but spiritual, energetically, I just find that in this community, there is so much emphasis on gender. Everything is man, woman, and it's very heterosexual, by the way. Everything is like there's a man energy and there's a woman energy. And, if you want to find a partner, all of these coaches are teaching like how to be man woman relationships. I really want to encourage everyone in this world, whether it's spirituality, whether it's your workplace, whether you're creating media or you're writing stories, whatever it is, to start thinking about and being aware of how you use gendered terms. When do you always say man and woman? Are you including non-binary folks? Are you including transgender folks? Are you assuming that everyone needs to fit into cisgender norms, which a lot of our media does? A man needs to look like a man, otherwise he's the weird character or he's gay. Think about these things and bring them into your awareness, because a lot of people in this world are not feeling included because of our gender norms that we got from Great Britain, thank you, and this Victorian era. You know, we got it from the colonizers in America. If you're listening from another country, you know, it's the same though. Very Christianized Europe brought all of that in, and just consider your words, consider your terminology. When we're talking about abortion rights, it's not just women, it's people that have, you know, uteruses. That includes
Correct.
trans men.
Uterus.
When we're talking about women's rights, we're including trans women in that as well. But just start to become aware of how you speak. And I think that everyone's going to realize, like, wow, I am so conditioned by these gender norms that, like, I didn't even know it. But then also consider how many people are not included in the conversation when we continue to use those norms. So that's just the last message I wanted to say, because that's really what I wanted to speak about in the show. And there's a lot of that in my books, you know, how, because it was the 1800s, so people are very stuck on those gender norms. They are very stuck on like the misogyny and the patriarchy. Being gay was illegal, you could be hung during that era. And still in countries today, it's illegal, you could be arrested for being gay. But like, why are we doing this? Why? Why do we need these gender norms? Why do we need this much control over humanity? And why can't we let people just be themselves? But the only time we're going to change this, we're not, you know, the government's going to use these things for their own political agendas. So we can't rely on our leaders. They're not going to make the change. The change needs to come from us. It needs to come from the whole non-binary community who is out there demanding that they are no gender. That's amazing. And now that's catching traction. And this is how we make the change, is we look around to see who our friends are, who we're speaking to, how do we include all of them? And then how can we communicate that and also demand that we all communicate in this way?
Let's talk a little
So
bit more
yes.
about it. We've got a little bit of time.
Sure.
So
Hey, we're here all
let's
day. I'm the producer. We got
we've got
time.
time. Well,
Yes.
you know,
I think it's
we'll
a really
do.
important topic.
We'll take this part of the show and edit it out and make it a separate thing so that actually it's up front instead of in the back.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
So let's talk about the language, right? The language
Mhm.
is very gender specific, right?
Yeah.
Especially English. You know, I understand, and I think most people understand that we use the word they as a usually as a group, and it can be singular, but once you use it singularly in the English language, it becomes a
Mhm.
word that refers to um, that group over there, or how,
Mhm.
or if you want to be ambiguous, sometimes you might say, well, I went out with them last night, and you don't want to tell your parents you went out with a bunch of, you know, people you weren't supposed to go out with
Yeah.
because they told you to stay home. How does the language need to change? Like, is there another word that we can come up with for non-binary instead of he, she? What could be another word instead of they? Because
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, they actually is a term that can also be used for a singular person. And I think that's what people forget is like when, you know, when you're a writer, they always try to make it specific, but then you're like, yeah, but wait a minute, then I'm making it gender specific. And I think that's the whole point. And by the way, I am not non-binary, so I do not want to speak for you all, but just this is my impression, is that they has already been in the dictionary forever. They is also used singularly. And so that's why they picked up the term and said, well, they, them is perfectly appropriate for somebody that doesn't fit he or she. So it could mean a group, but it could also mean a singular person that doesn't identify with the pronouns he or she. And so it
mhm.
actually does, in that sense, make sense for people to use. And if they want to change the word, I think that's really up to them, not the rest of society. I think that's another important thing. And there's so many other gender terms, by the way, that I'm not even going to get into that you know, like I don't even know all of them. And so there's a lot.
You know, it'd be interesting because in other cultures, other languages, there are probably words that mean they that can be used and appropriated into the English language, right? But it's not top of mind, so nobody actually goes out and looks for them. You know, it's kind of like
Absolutely. And yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like Latin X. I'm not sure where Latinx falls. And I've actually asked people who are Latinx how to use that term, and especially in Spanish when you're talking, and it's like the language is gendered, right? How do
Yeah,
you actually
it
include
very
people?
much. The language, and that's the crazy thing is all of our languages are gendered, names are gendered, the way, the way that people created the language. And it's kind of a shame because for thousands of years, we've just tied everything to like man or woman, and there's never been anything either in between or neither of those things, or even somebody that is in a certain body, trans, and feels that they are the other gender. We just never had these terms, even though these people existed. But because society created the norms, they said, well, most people are cis, most people are one of these things. This is how it works. And so we've not included so many people in history that did exist. Being trans is not a new thing. It's been around since the beginning of time. Being gay is not a thing. It's been around since the beginning of a time. It's not a new thing. And I think people forget that what we're looking at here are not new things. They're not trends. It's actually that we're including people that have always not been included
Yeah,
in the norms of society. And we create these norms to control people. Let's, look at black versus white. I mean, how many years did white people believe that black people were literally stupid and not as intelligent as them and not as evolved? And we're like, what? Now we're like, what?
right.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Still
Because now we
doesn't.
understand. Yeah. Yeah. In America, we're so crazy here. Oh my gosh. We're the epitome of like all of the norms.
It is amazing when you think about it, because you're right. In America, and I didn't realize this until I started taking Spanish lessons with people in other countries. Like, I could go to places in South America, and I'm just one of the people there. I could go to Saudi Arabia, and I'm not a minority. And
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around the fact that I'm not a minority in other places. Okay. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's that's it.
And there are and there are studies, and I'm not going to get these numbers right because writing my book, I do have to consider, it's a made up country, but it's still influenced by, in the 1800s by Europe and America. So there is racism, and there is sexism, there is homophobia, there is transphobia, because all of that existed. And I was reading a study where it was like, actually, white is not the majority in the world. It's
It's
only
not.
the majority in like the Western America and Western Europe. And so, but these are the countries, Great Britain owned like 25% of the world. So they went around and pushed this idea of whiteness, which then it came to America with the Protestants that settled here and colonized here. And so this specific area of the world is all about whiteness. It's all about racism. And that's like, well, if you go outside your door and you go to another country, like you are actually the minority. If I went to Egypt, I remember visiting there, and my sister has blonde hair and blue eyes, and we went out, and I mean, she was just like this oddity. I look Greek, so people don't really bother me, but my sister was just like, you are this white, blonde, blue-eyed American person, and she was such an oddity, and people were like gathering around her, and it's such a unique, interesting experience. But I think people need to realize that they are not at the top of the food chain here in the world. This is
Yeah.
only an American thing. This is an English thing. And then obviously in some of the other Western European countries and Eastern European countries, but it is not a world thing.
So we
Yeah.
just need to get people to travel more and understand other cultures more.
Seriously, get
Yeah.
outside your bubble. And then
Yeah.
you have people traveling, like you have these Americans traveling. I went to Brazil, and I was so embarrassed to hear how entitled some of these Americans were, because there's also like classism, and their money went further, and they were making fun of poor people. And I was like, okay, I don't know what is going on in this country, but we have a massive entitlement issue in America for
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
I think we're gonna have to do another show on this topic
Yeah.
and
Yes.
stick with it. And well, we can also throw in the sci-fi too, but because it's coming out there. But I love this topic, and it's mind-opening and it's enlightening. I think it's something that the world needs to get on board with. So I want to show people your get in touch with you there,
Yeah.
Kristen
I
Nedopak.
know.
I mean,
I was
Kaedyn
like, oh yeah,
Nedopak.
my website's not up. Gated Nedopak, yes.
Yeah,
That's my old name.
I know. Sorry about that.
No
And
worries, no worries.
I think I told you about my friend that made me and everybody that we knew, and there were like hundreds of us that used to use her old name, And then she
Mhm.
stayed and just changed her name. And it's like took like a year and a half for everyone to like finally fall into
You
the new
know,
name.
it's totally fine. I get that question all the time. People are like, "Am I gonna be offended?" Are you gonna be offended if I get your pronouns wrong? Because obviously I look a certain way, and even if I tell someone, they're gonna mess it up. But, for me personally, no, because I'm a little bit older and I kinda have my shit together. But for a younger generation where their identity means everything and they're also going through all of that social, trauma of, like, being in high school, like, definitely gendering people correctly and get their name right could be in a matter of life and death. So just
Mhm.
take that for everybody watching, take that into consideration that for someone else, it might not be the case for me, but for someone else, it's just as important as a cis person getting gendered correctly. Because Michael, if you walked out of your house and every single day people were calling you she and people were calling you woman and telling you you were a girl, you would be like, what is going on? Right? That's how it
Yes.
feels to be trans.
Yes. I completely understand that. Let's, what do we want to tell people now? I think walk out your door, see some people, treat them the
Yeah.
way that you want to be
Yeah.
treated better.
Just open your mind that someone might not be the social, uh, typical, stereotypical, whatever they are, that you've been mind conditioned to think. And open
Awesome.
your mind that everyone's individual and everyone has a choice of who they want to be and who they are, even if you can't see it. And you know what? Ask. Ask people
And
their pronouns, ask people who they are, ask people their name, and most of all, trust them when they say they are who they are.
can I just say one more thing here? And that
Yes.
is that it's kind of like asking is people think that they're going to offend people by asking.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's why people don't ask, is
yeah.
because they feel like they're going to upset somebody by asking. So I think if we want to leave people with something like really key, it's what you just said. Let's ask, you know?
We should all make it a habit to start asking people pronouns, even when I'm doing the show, like, "Okay, I'm gonna ask our guests their pronouns," because I think assuming and getting it wrong is actually worse than, somebody getting offended if you think you're right.
Kaden, we're going to do this again. Stick around.
Yes,
Everybody
yes,
else,
I'm not
we'll
going
see you in the
anywhere.
future. Bye.
Bye.